Hey everyone, welcome. We're happy to have you here today. We're going to wait 1 minute before we get started, let some more people file in. We're going to be really going deep here today. We've committed to these webinar series about being all actionable insights and things that you can take back for your business. No fluff, no sales. So I'm excited for this one. I think this is one of the areas where we really excel at as an agency and get really good results for our client partners. And Harriet's one of the architects of that. So we're going to be going pretty deep today and peeling back the curtain on. I was about to mix my idioms and say peeled back the hood on the tactics that we use at Nectar for our client partners. So very shortly, we got more and more people coming in. We'll do some quick intros, and then we'll get started at two after. Yeah, and this is going to be a good one. We'll keep it to about 35 minutes. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. We'll try to answer them, and if we can't, we'll save them for the end and go for there. So I am Jason. I'm one of the founders of Nectar, which is a digital marketing agency focused on marketplaces. Just so you're aware, why should you care what we have to say? We're an advanced Amazon partner. We manage 9 figures in Amazon media. And we work with mid-market and enterprise brands on Amazon, everything from creative, sales ops, advertising, analytics, and more. And I will let the great Harriet Carson introduce herself.
Hey everyone, I'm Harriet Carson. I'm the VP of Advertising at Nectar. So I've spent, the past decade building and scaling Amazon programs across sponsored ads and then DSP, and also have deep experience with Amazon Marketing Cloud. I also have a background in broader digital marketing and operations, which really allows me to connect Amazon into the full funnel and omni-channel strategy. You should never be operating in silo. I've been running Amazon ads for a pretty long time before sponsored brands and DSP even launched. And the way that I've managed ads has evolved over time as Amazon has really been rolling out new features. And honestly, just as I've tested various tactics, what I've really learned is, while there's various tactics and strategies you can implement, there really is a science to winning sponsored ads on Amazon. It's connecting ad data to organic data, and that's how you're going to really generate those incremental dollars and eliminate waste, which I'm really excited that we're going to review today and talk about one of my favorite reports, which is search query performance.
Yeah, so we're going to dive deep here and talk about a variety of different strategies you can use to improve your advertising. And you can honestly use this data also improve your creative. And so, yeah, we're just going to jump right in. So what are the theoretical reasons you would use this data, and maybe even stepping back, what is search query performance?
Yeah. So when we look at search query performance, for anyone who isn't familiar, it is search query performance. It's currently available for sellers inside brand analytics, and it's slowly rolling out for vendors as well. So it's a few clicks deep in brand analytics. You go over to search analytics, then search query performance, which honestly is probably why so many teams either haven't found it, or what we're finding is a lot of people go in, they open it and they open it once and then they close it without knowing what to do with it. So what does it actually show you? SQP, what it measures is the full customer journey for every single search query. So impressions, clicks, cart ads, and brand impressions, click and purchase share. So you get this data by week, by month, by quarter, all the way down to the ASIN level. And when you map those metrics to what they actually represent, you're looking at, visibility, engagement, intent, and conversion in that order at the query level. So we'll get into specific use cases for search query performance. What we're going to do today is we're going to show you how to actually use it, not just look at it. So how to stop wasting ad spend, find real growth opportunities, and really build a smarter strategy that's rooted in what is actually happening at the search query level. We've structured this around 4 areas: stopping organic cannibalization, uncovering scalable opportunities, diagnosing funnel leakage, and tracking true market share. These are all things we see come up across pretty much every account. We will walk through real examples throughout the presentation so you can really see how this plays out in practice. And ideally, you're going to walk away with this with a few things you can actually implement right away, not just something that sits in a deck and you want to use, but you're not sure how.
And a couple of things to add for what it's worth. If you are a vendor and don't have this in beta in your account today, there are workarounds for you to get it through a Seller Central account. As you can imagine, you can basically get this data. Your brand registry just has to be associated with a seller account to get this data. So you can access it if you're creative. And then, really philosophically, as you're thinking about this, oftentimes brands hit a wall in some way or another, right? They are spending the money on a search term and it's not working, right? The efficiency is plummeting, so the ROAS is decreasing. Or they whoever let me control the slides, please. Whoever is you hit a wall and you can't optimize more towards ROAS to get what you want, right? So you have to start looking at other metrics. This is what search query performance unlocks. Or your CPCs are increasing and you can't win on the keywords at the efficiency you need. So you have to come up with a different strategy. So essentially, brands have been too reliant on traditional KPIs that are not detailed enough to determine your purchase share and your market share, and whether your ad spend is improving your organic visibility and conversion share. And that's what search query performance enables you to do if you use it properly. I will say that Amazon doesn't do a great job currently of correlating the data it gives you with in search query performance with your advertising. So that's what we, I think, do quite well as an agency. But anyone is capable of doing it. You just have to stitch the data together.
Yeah, and when you think about, what that means, before this report existed, you could see your ad performance and you could also see your organic rank if you're tracking that, but you couldn't see them really together with your share on a search term level overlaid. And you also couldn't see how customers were moving through the funnel on specific search terms. Search query performance changes that. It lets you pinpoint exactly where you're winning and where you're losing, whether that's at the awareness stage, the click stage, or all the way down to purchase. So that's really the foundation of everything we're going to go through today. So just keep that framework in mind as we visit each one.
Touched on this. The search query performance data is in brand analytics if you have it enabled, and there's you can see this at the search term level. So that's how Amazon gives it to you, including search volume, brand share, impression share, and cart ads. So there's every step of the funnel. Amazon is giving you data at the search term level for your catalog, and it can be filtered at the ASIN level. So this is really, really powerful data. Again, what Amazon doesn't do is trend this against advertising data, which makes it incredibly powerful when you do those two together, right? Because this is just giving you the holistic picture. It's not telling you how your advertising is impacting these metrics. So when you start to measure that over time, that is the huge unlock. So taking it a step deeper, how can you use this data, Harriet, to stop organic cannibalization?
Yeah, so pillar one, stopping organic cannibalization. This is one of the most common and honestly one of the most expensive mistakes we see, running paid ads on queries where you already own the organic demand, called cannibalization. It's hard to really measure this without search query performance, I will say, or just like deep analytics. So here's the framework. Step one is identify the queries where your organic purchase share is already dominant. It shows you this directly in search query performance. Step two, recognize when paid ads are just capturing existing demand. This is a gut punch moment for a lot of brands. You're bidding on a keyword, winning the click, thinking you're driving revenue, but that customer was going to buy from you anyways. You just paid for something that you would have gotten for free organically. And then step three, reduce spend and bids on those high organic terms, protect your rank, but stop paying full price for clicks that you're already earning naturally. And step 4, take that recaptured budget and shift it into towards more incremental growth. So search terms where paid is actually moving the needle. There is a step 5 that isn't listed here, which is then come back a week later and look at how that spend has impacted your organic share of voice and purchase share, and then optimize them from there. So it's utilizing search query performance to understand those gaps, but then using it to measure the outcomes over time. So now let's make it concrete with the chart on the screen. So look at revenue share by search segment. This is showing us the brand's purchase share across their top terms that Amazon deems most relevant and revenue generating. You can see at the top left on the chart, it's sorted by search rank. That's an Amazon metric where they determine. But take 2 terms from this: green bags versus green bags for fruits and vegetable. The more niche term almost certainly has lower search volume, and this brand already has really high purchase share on it. If they're also spending heavily on that term because, ROAS probably looks great, which sure makes sense on the surface, that can add up to a massive amount of redundant paid spend. Meanwhile, the term green bags has, only 37% purchase share versus the high 70s on the niche term. That's where the opportunity in this scenario is. More search volume, more share to win, and paid can actually move the needle there. I do just want to note 37% purchase share is still very high for most non-branded terms, but this is an example case. Many times this is 40% versus less than 1% purchase share. So quick note there. Another great example of this is branded spend. A lot of brands are significantly over investing here. There is a case for protecting your brand and for awareness spend off of Amazon. I'm not saying cut it entirely unless you prove it's not at all incremental. But the real question is to ask, when you pull back on branded terms, does your purchase share actually drop? So that's out of the amount of the total customers searching for your brand, what percentage of those are purchasing from you versus purchasing from competitors? So are competitors winning on your terms? Or since people are already coming to Amazon and searching specifically for your brand, are they just going to buy from you anyways because you're winning organically? That's the question that search query performance lets you answers. And for a lot of brands, the answer is a pretty expensive wake-up call.
Yeah. So, and to explain this a little bit further, essentially what Harriet, or to explain this in a different way, what Harriet is saying is you know what your purchase share is for any term, whether it's branded or non-branded. So taking the example of branded, let's just say this is, Apple AirPods, right? If the conversion share is 95% and you're spending $100,000 a week on that term, just to keep it simple, uh, and you pull back to $85,000 and your conversion share stays the same, that means that the $15,000 in spend was not driving incremental revenue, most likely, almost certainly, because especially for branded search, where consumers are actively seeking your brand, which is driven by demand generated outside of Amazon because they're literally entering your brand name in the search box, as a predicate to the search registering. Um, so, you want to keep running that test until you find essentially diminishing returns, and then periodically revisit it. So this is where trending your ad spend against your purchase share becomes really, really important to determine the incrementality of your ad spend. Obviously, not all not all searches on Amazon are a keyword search, but still a large majority of them are. So this is capturing the vast majority of the traffic. So it's a great indicator of what you should be doing and how you should be allocating your funds to drive incremental revenue and potentially find opportunities to reallocate spend into more terms that are incremental and will grow your share. This is why moving away from ROAS is really impactful when you have the right data to leverage to figure out how to actually grow your share. Yeah. So the takeaway here is if you already own the demand organically, paid should protect, not compete. You don't want to cannibalize your sales with excessive spend. So it's all about figuring out what is the right amount you should be spending on terms, and then reinvesting the rest on net new or incremental search terms. All right, two.
All right. So pillar two, uncovering scalable opportunities. Pillar two is really the flip side of pillar one. Once you've identified the waste and pulled back where it makes sense, where does that budget actually go? And the good news is that the answer already is sitting in your search query performance data. You just have to know what signals to look for. So one signal would be low impression share combined with a healthy conversion rate. What that tells you is that when customers do find you, they buy. You just aren't showing up enough. That's not a product problem. That's a visibility problem. And that is absolutely something you can fix with spend. And as we all know, Amazon's ranking algorithm, in most cases, in some sense, is pay to play. So we classify queries into really three buckets. And this is something we actually do inside iDerive for our brands. The first is scale ready. So low impression share, high purchase rate. That's your kind of green light. Raise bids, increase budget, expand placements. The example here is Black Wolf face wash with a 4.2 impression share and a 12.8 purchase share. You're barely showing up. And when you do, people are buying. That's a no-brainer. Put some spend towards it and test it. Come back and see how incremental it was. Second is wasted spend risk. And this ties back to pillar one. This is where you have high impression share, but the spend isn't converting incrementally. You're visible, but you may be paying for demand that you already own organically. Black Wolf shampoo is sitting at 68.5 impression share. The question becomes, what percent of that is paid? What percent of that is organic? Is paid driving that, or would customers have found you anyways? That budget can almost certainly work harder somewhere else. Side note, I'm not sure that we touched on this. Search query performance is your total brand share, your total impression share, and it also pulls in total impressions, total clicks. It does not split out organic and paid. It is a combination of both. But you can backtrack from that and really understand the split between organic and paid if you have the paid data. And then the third is fix before scaling. And this one is really important because the instinct for a lot of brands is to just spend more when something is not working. But if you have decent visibility and low conversion, more spend is just going to burn faster. You need to make sure that you have the foundations in place and that your content is relevant and your titles and your creative and your on both your brand store and your creative for your ads is moving users to convert. And sometimes the term can be relevant, but there's other things in play. Pricing can be another thing, which we'll also dive deeper into. If you look at this chart, though, you can see, men's body wash, 22.1% impression share, but only a 2.1% purchase share. In this specific scenario, when comparing to other query performance, that's telling you something's broken on the page. Fix the content, the pricing, the reviews, whatever is killing the conversion, and then scale, not before. I do want to call out one important caveat here because I don't want anyone to walk away and apply these buckets, too rigidly. Not every search term is created equal. And when you really you cannot look at these metrics in isolation. You have to factor in search volume too. And this view does not do that. Going back to men's body wash. Yes, the conversion rate's low, but that's also a very highly competitive, high volume search term. And here's the thing. Sometimes you should be willing to accept a lower ROAS on a term like that because the real prize is organic rank. If you really think about it, if spending on that term helps you climb the rank organically and show up more frequently in the search results, I'm talking about men's body wash still, not just when ads are running and then you're converting organically at scale. In that scenario, do you really care about what your paid ROAS is or if it's lower? Probably not, because the organic sales that you're seeing likely magnifies what you would have gotten in paid sales with a higher ROAS. That's, Amazon's algorithm rewarding you for showing up consistently with paid, building interest, and then being ranked higher in the organic results. It's a longer game, but it's a very powerful one. One more pro tip for anyone who wants to just go really deep on this. If you have multiple products that are similar, like multi-packs, for example, you can actually use search query performance to identify which specific products you should be putting spend behind for certain keywords, because you can drill all the way down to the product level. There's two reports. There's the brand report and the ASIN level. But, that's a whole session on its own. So today, let's keep it to the fundamentals and make sure everyone just has the foundation.
And I also want to add that there's a lot of nuance to this. You need to look at the ASIN level report, and sometimes there's terms that you get sales on, but they're just not as relevant for whatever reason, and they have a really low ceiling. And this is why I think AI agents are so far away from managing ads. There is so much context and nuance that can only be evaluated by a human with strong analytical reasoning skills at this point. So it is. I think this is one of the primary reasons AI is so far away from actually managing ads.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in a platform without needing a human to really analyze the data where it we're tying together spend as well as organic rank as well as your market share data. You really need to connect the dots between your ad share of voice and your organic share of voice, but then go a level deeper and understand what products are going to be successful. What's the halo impact there? How is my ads impacting my total market share? Like, that's the question that everyone has. How incremental is my ad spend? Search query performance allows you to quantify that. However, Amazon's giving you this data. A lot of people don't know what to do with it. Amazon makes it very hard to merge the data and trend it over time. It's a lot of downloading weekly spreadsheets and then keeping track of it over time and then overlaying an ad spend. iDerive does track this. It makes it a lot easier, but there's definitely more simple ways you can use it to like analyze this data for if it's your first time.
Yeah, and so to sum up pillar 2, you're really thinking about it as like different quadrants where is your conversion rate low? Do I need to work on that before scaling? My impression low, but conversion rate high. Try to get more impressions. That's how you want to think about it, is like a 4 quadrant graph, where depending on what the quadrant is, you take a certain set of actions to attempt to scale or get your product ready to scale. So moving on to pillar 3.
Yeah. So pillar 3 is diagnosing funnel leakage before raising bids. So it's about diagnosing where in the funnel you're losing before you touch any bids or change anything. This one saves a lot of wasted spend in the short term. So the framework uses the SQP funnel data, impressions, clicks, purchases to pinpoint exactly where performance is breaking down on a given search term. Look at the trend chart on the screen. There's a 3x spike in ad spend and purchase share doesn't move at all. That's not a bidding problem. Going back to pillar 1, that's a cannibalization problem, and raising bids would have made it worse. Here's how you read really the scenario. High impressions, low clicks, and Jason, we can go to the next slide. That is a creative, pricing, or relevance issue. Your hero image, title, or price isn't compelling enough to earn the click. More spend won't fix that. High clicks and low conversions, that's a product, page, or offer issue. Reviews, pricing, content, something on the page is killing the sale. Again, raising bids likely won't help. So we want to make sure that we are mapping the funnel first. The data tells you exactly what to fix, so you stop guessing. Again, you get this visibility at the query and the ASIN level, so you can unlock so much when using it the right way. What Amazon, again, does is give you the data. They don't tell you what to do with it, and they make it really hard to trend it out. So what we do, and hopefully you're learning on this call, is what Nectar does is we're tying all of this data together: search query performance, organic rank, ad spend, to cut all the noise in the data and really measure incrementality. And we'll go through the ways to really truly implement that.
So moving on to pillar 4.
Yeah, that's track true market share. So we saved the best for last. Pillar 4 is about really playing the long game. Honestly, this is the one I get most excited about. Return on ad spend optimization, it gives you a really narrow lane. In my opinion, it can actually limit your ability to scale. It's great to use as a benchmark, but market share is the ultimate goal. And thinking through how and analyzing how ad spend is correlating with organic is what gives you an actual growth strategy. So the key metric here is purchase share. Your share of total purchases on a given search query. And when you start tracking it over time and overlaying it with your ad spend, something really starts to click. You can literally see on this chart, when you spend more, purchase share goes up. When you pull back, purchase share comes down. And sometimes you see the opposite. You're spending and your share isn't moving, which is equally valuable because that's telling you to reallocate. It's not incremental and it's cannibalization. This visualization alone, it changes how you think about budget decisions. You stop asking, what's my return on ad spend? And you start asking, is the spend actually growing my share and is it moving the needle? Those are very different questions. ROAS just gives you your return on ad spend. It doesn't include your what's happening organically.
Yeah, and I think that's the hard part for people to wrap their heads around sometimes, is that, you know, historically, Facebook or Meta and Google, they operate very differently because the ads don't impact organic. It's just the ads. And so the only way you transact on those platforms is if you get, a sale from your ads. Whereas on Amazon, your paid ads influence your organic visibility, and you have to look at that holistically. And if you just look at ROAS, you're only looking at how much sales you're getting from advertising, which is why it can work against you, because you can end up cannibalizing your organic sales. So just taking a step back and looking at it this way allows you to again look at it holistically and not be so essentially being myopic, short-sighted when you're looking at ROAS, because your advertising impacts your organic visibility. Amazon wants to feature the most relevant products for a given customer search term, so that the customer experience is maximized or optimized. So that's how the algorithm is working. That's price, reviews, delivery time, and the more that you can pay and get in those placements and perform, the more Amazon will reward you. So that's why you have to look at it together to get the optimal results. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and
Yeah. So, kind of summing this up.
yeah, and I just want to make this point really clear because we've really been building up to it the whole session. Track share, not just ROAS. ROAS is used as an efficiency metric, doesn't tell you if your business is actually growing. Purchase share tells you whether you're winning in the market. That's what we should be measuring and moving over time. The question I'd encourage every brand to start asking every single week is, are you defending and growing your share, or are you just recycling spend on demand that you already own? That's the shift, and SQP is what makes it possible to answer it with real data. Um, you know, this data that Amazon released, again, I said it's one of the most powerful sets of data that Amazon's released probably since AMC. It's just, understanding how to use it. They're literally giving you all of the data that you really need to make sure that your ads are efficient and incremental. It's just making sure that you're consistently keeping up with it and monitoring those trends.
A reminder to keep dropping your questions in the chat. We're gonna get to them. Yeah. So as Harry had said, one of the key takeaways here is that your growth really comes from increasing share, not just improving efficiency. But I would also argue optimizing your ROAS doesn't make you more efficient. It's ensuring that your ad spend is increasing your organic sales is what actually makes you more efficient over time. So bringing it all together.
Yeah, so let's bring the four pillars together, because they really do work as a system. One, reduce wasted spend from organic cannibalization. Two, reallocate that budget towards incremental growth. Then there's improved efficiency by fixing funnel issues before raising bids, and then build a more defensible, margin-driven strategy by tracking, real market share over time and how spend is correlating with that. When you run these four together, Search Query Performing stops being a report that you glance at once a month and becomes really an operating system for growth.
So how would you recommend that brands operationalize this? Because it's easy to get overwhelmed with all this data. How do you actually walk away from here this session today and implement it in your business?
Yeah, so I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like a lot of data. It all sounds great, but a lot of work. So let's be real about, making it manageable. I would say that the 80-20 rule does apply here. Focus your time on the top 10 to 20 highest impact queries first. You don't need to analyze thousands of terms to see results. Start where the volume is highest and work outward, and start with your top products. Build repeatable workflows, create a simple weekly tracking system, prioritize, actions over analysis. The goal is a process that your team can actually run every week, not a one-time deep dive that lives in a spreadsheet that nobody cares about or monitors. I would say also with Amazon's new reporting beta tool that they released, we now have on a search term level without needing Amazon Marketing Cloud, we have new to brand metrics on a keyword level. So you can even, if you're good at Excel and like good at merging reports, you can even pull the reporting data from the reporting beta into merge with search query performance on a search query level. And you can start to understand even deeper and past the past 60 days, because you can go back to on a query level up to 5 years by week, like how historically has our spend influenced our search query performance. And search query performance, you can go back 18 months. So if you see that a year ago you were really successful at a term and you've dropped off, with the reporting beta you can actually match up if a year ago you were spending more on that term with ad spend. So there's really no limits in terms of the look back window and how granular you can get with it. It's just about how you use it. Again, I would start with just your top products, top queries to make it simple. Run it for a week or two, come back, look at the data, and see what the results were.
Yeah, and I also want to add that part of this may involve uh, realigning your organization's philosophies about what makes ads successful. And so, again, moving away from ROAS as the primary KPI, for example, and that means proving this out, so that taking running micro tests using this data, showing that it's leading to incremental results, and getting more buy-in to make these shifts. Right, we recognize that a lot of companies, especially larger orgs, you can't just go in and do whatever you want. So this framework that Harriet's suggesting is also great to do that, to prove in a way is like running your own little beta and proving out that this can work and lead to more incrementality and profitability for your business. Sorry about that. So in full transparency, we have a platform. It's not right for everyone, but we use it to manage all of our accounts. I think that what's important here is whether or not you're using a platform is how you think about merging the data together, because it isn't together today. Right. So we pull together Amazon ads data, sales data, SQP data, and content signals, and we're trending all that. So one of the graphs we showed allowed you to pick any two metrics from SQP and ads and trend them against each other, like how your ad spends impacting your impression share, your purchase share. Right. So the more that you can build automations around this, the more time you can spend actioning on it and less time you spend trying to get to the insights, because there's a lot of data here and Amazon operates in silos, right? The ads team works independently from retail and the seller central pretty much. So you have to then put all of that together. It does take time. For the brands that we manage, we're using our analytics platform, and some brands use it as self-service. I'm sure we're not the only platform. I'm sure there's other platforms out there. And again, you can do this all manually. Just want if you are trying to scale this, automation is important because it's a lot of data. Yeah, so I think we've kind of hit this over the head many times at this point, but we have so much success using this because it really does lead to incremental results, and is very certain, as opposed to ROAS, which is quite speculative. Any last thoughts that you want to add, Harriet?
Yeah, I think that just brings us to the thought that really ties everything together. Search query performance, it does shift you from reactive optimization to proactive growth strategies. So you stop really chasing yesterday's numbers and start building towards where you actually want to go, and you have the data to build a path to get you there.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a different philosophy, but I think it's about staying ahead of the curve and pushing the boundaries. For all the the reasons people get frustrated with Amazon, they do provide the most data in terms of not having to pay for it out of any marketplace. So a lot of people just aren't leveraging this data. There's huge opportunities. If you compare what Walmart provides through paid Scintilla, the cost of that is astronomical, right? So you get all this data for free. It's like you should be using it. There's some great questions here that we're going to dive into. I'm going to take Brent, the first one. Do you also track total impression and click counts on branded terms? If you pull back branded spend, share may stay consistent, but total impressions and clicks decline, and SQP doesn't account for branded spend driving conversions across other placements like product pages and remarketing. I would say yes, we definitely do. Right? We have in iDerive, we have the ability to track that. I would say the perfection is the enemy of progress, and you need to think about what is driving results. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. Right? If you're going to pull back branded spend and it's not incremental, you are going to get fewer impressions, in like your sponsored brand headline ads and top of search. But if ultimately those are not driving incremental sales over time, then that money is better spent on terms that are going to drive incremental sales as opposed to defending your impression share. Those goals could change at times for different reasons. If you're running a broader campaign off Amazon, for example, we're not saying that everything is static and you know things don't change, but you have to look at it in totality, and you can't get everything that you want. I don't know if you would add anything to that, Harriet.
Totally. Yeah. One thing I want to add here is, yeah, use it directionally, right? So say you're spending $100,000, let's just say $100,000 a month on branded terms, and then you cut spend by 50%, and the next month you spend 50,000. It's not going to impact search volume because your search volume is coming from off Amazon marketing efforts, but it if you look at your purchase share, and your purchase share, say when you were spending 100,000 is 99%, and then when you're spending 50,000 it's still 99%, or it's 98.5%. You can quantify that with the sales numbers it gives you. But is that extra $50,000 really worth that spending on branded keywords, or would it be more incremental shifting it into terms that you've identified are incremental and under leveraged? I know you talked about product targeting and how search query performance does not cover that. True. However, when we say investing in branded, I'm specifically talking about branded keyword targeting. Branded product targeting, that's a whole different way that you track things. So branded product targeting, the way that I track success there is looking at the correlation between how much coverage you're getting on your branded product detail pages versus and then what's the impact of your conversion rates for non-branded campaigns, because that does impact your conversion rates. If someone types in, let's just say, men's body wash again, and then they get to your product detail page and there's competitors showing up on your page, someone finds that competitor and clicks and buys, that competitor is getting that sale or that piece of share for the term men's body wash. The same acts for branded. If you have more branded coverage on your product detail page, and that's going to help increase your brand purchase share as well.
All right, moving on to that's a great question. Thank you. And yes, as Harriet said, it's really a balancing act. There's no perfect answer. You have to make some decisions about what is best for your brand, your business, and weigh that accordingly. So Ted, more of a practical question. It's a good one. When we download Search Query Performance in Seller Central, we're given 4 options: Simple View, Comprehensive View, Amazon's Choice Badge Data, and Search Funnel Outliers. Which version of the report should we download and use for our analysis?
I use the Simple View. The Simple View gives you really everything that you need in order to, it's still a lot of data. It gives you everything we covered today: impressions, clicks, purchase, add to cart, as well as your conversion rate on a search term level, the average price versus your selling price, all of your share data. So, that's enough for me. I haven't even gotten into like advanced tactics for the other views because search query performance is still very new, and we're able to solve exactly what we need with that simple view.
And then a follow-along question, which is how can we learn how to access the SQP report for our vendor central brands? We already have access to Seller Central through one of our accounts. Yeah, quite candidly, Amazon permits vendors to give brand registry to seller accounts, whether that's an agency, a third party, if you have a seller account. So you can essentially unlock the data sets by giving brand registry on each brand, if you have more than one brand, to a Seller Central account and have the data passed back that way. It's not against Amazon's terms of service. They have started rolling out SQP data to vendors in beta, but that's the workaround to get the data now. So you would just access it through Seller Central if you're a vendor once you've given brand registry rights to that Seller Central account. I don't, typically the paid programs for Vendor Central are advertising programs or content programs like Premium A Plus or Premium Brand Stores. Don't expect Amazon to charge for SQP. And again, they've been rolling it out in beta for free, as far as we understand, to vendors. So I expect more of that to come. These are great questions. So there's one question about AI, which I will address that separately. I know I went off on a tangent there, but we're also at time. If you have more questions or want to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I hope you found this valuable today. There's also a lot more that we'll be touching on in future webinars with brand analytics and how you can find net new opportunities with overlaying your ad spend. So we'll make sure to cover some of those in future webinars and other tactics that we use at Nectar to scale brands. But again, feel free to reach out to me or Harriet on LinkedIn if you have more questions, or to reach out to us on our website, and hope that you found this valuable today. Thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Have a great
Harriet.